Have you been told you need to lose weight to fit into the healthy BMI category? Or maybe you've been trying to go on a diet, exercise more because you need to lose weight to be healthy. Well, this video is for you if that's the case, Bliss Seeker. And this might be, no, I'm guessing it's definitely going to be the most important video you watch today and in general. So do listen up, buckle up your seat, and get ready for the ride because I'm really serious. This is so important. So for definition's sake, let's define the body mass index, aka BMI. BMI is a measure of body fat based on height and weight that applies to adult men and women. Now in this video, I'm going to expose the truth on the body mass index. We're gonna dive into the science of if it actually works, why it's the #1 health indicator that health professionals use, and where it actually comes from. This isn't a conspiracy theory, I promise. If you're new around here, my name is Ariana. I'm a registered dietitian specializing in disordered eating and eating disorders, and I am also a modern mystic, and I am here on a mission to help you find your worth separate from your dress size. I know today there are so many of my clients and people out there that are experiencing a lot of weight stigma, a lot of biases around their weight, making them feel shamed, shamed of the body they live in, and that leading to disordered behaviors. So I want to put an end to all of this and give you your power back, which is separate from that number you see on the scale. Now be sure to stick around till the end to snag my free audio breakup guide to help you kickstart your food and body healing journey so that you can start eating with ease and find your happy weight. Now let's go dive into the BMI, shall we? So it all started way back when, 200 years ago, when a Belgian mathematician by the name of Adolphe Quetelet, I hope I'm saying it right, this guy right over here, invented what we now know as the BMI to help statistically analyze populations. Key word here is populations. He wanted to study patterns in people, a very specific niche of people. Now, in the specific case of the body mass index, which was actually called the Quetelet's index way back then, was actually to just determine the mean height and weight of the population, just to have a measure to see, most of the population is X height, most of the population is this weight. It was used as a statistical measure, not a health indicator, and he specifically mentioned that this was not to be used for that. He stated that his equation could not and should not be used as an assessment of individual health status. So why are we relying on this indicator that wasn't even meant to be used as a health indicator so heavily to determine our worth and our health status, when the guy who invented it clearly stated, do not do that? Now, weight wasn't even used as a health indicator until the 1900s, when US insurance companies decided to gather information about the health and the weight of their policyholders, and they started to use it to decide how much they would actually charge policyholders. Now, the BMI tables were developed by actuaries trained in risk assessment, and they were based on self-reported, inaccurate height and weights of people who held life insurance policies during a particular period of time. So age, gender, ethnicity, and other important characteristics were never really taken into account. So these tables were actually developed by actuaries, so people who specialize in numbers, not in the human body, physiology, psychology, health, right? So I don't know about you, but that's quite puzzling and quite concerning that we're placing so much emphasis on a number that was never actually created by someone who knows about health in the first place. In addition to that, these tables were actually compiled based on self-reported data. So this is self-reported height and weight. Who knows? I mean, does everyone know their height in centimeters? Maybe not. So despite being poorly supported by the evidence and being highly inaccurate, physicians started adopting the Quetelet index in their offices. And they started using it to assess their patients' individual health needs, looking at health and weight. So BMI entered the doctor's office in about the 50s and 60s. Then came the famous Dr. Ancel Keys. He's a really famous researcher, most notably known for the Minnesota starvation study, which I explain in greater detail in my video on why you're probably still hungry even after eating. And in this particular study where he ended up coining the term the body mass index, he was looking to compare 3 different measures of body fat in order to see which one was the most accurate. So they compared underwater weighing, skinfold measurements, and the height to weight ratio, aka Quetelet's index. And what they found was that Quetelet's index was slightly better than the other options with a reliability of about 50%. In other words, the measurement only reliably measured obesity half of the time. Half! And this then turned into the body mass index. Do you feel my concern? Now, just a little pause for me as we're on the edge of our seats together to remind you, if you're liking this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can get more videos dropping every single week by yours truly to help you on your food and body healing journey. Okay, so let's fast forward to another very important point in time with the BMI. And this was 1995. Where the World Health Organization published a report recommending that the BMI thresholds for what was considered overweight or obese were lowered. This report was primarily created by an organization called the International Obesity Task Force, who were funded by several pharmaceutical companies that were producing weight loss drugs. So you may have guessed it, by lowering the BMI cutoffs, overnight, just like that, millions of people were immediately told that they had to lose weight, even if they were healthy originally, just yesterday, 24 hours ago. So what ended up happening? Pharmaceutical companies made so much money. The ones who actually paid for this report to be published in the first place. And that, bliss seekers, is how the BMI came to be, and came to be the #1 objective health assessment used by doctors today. So how are we feeling now? Let's take a deep breath together, shall we? I know, don't worry, it's okay. By the end of this video, you're getting your power back, baby. All right, now we know the origins of BMI are incredibly suspicious. Now, if you're still not convinced, we're just gonna dive into 3 reasons, looking at the science, why BMI should no longer be used as a measure of health. So let's dive in. The first is that BMI cannot be applied to the wider population. So if we think back to the original research, Quetelet looked at populations that were white European men, and so he didn't really take into account considerations and variations among genders as well as races and different ethnic groups. So what the current research shows is that BMI actually overestimates health-related outcomes in Black populations and underestimates them in Asian populations. It's also important to note that BMI only considers height and weight, but it doesn't necessarily say where that weight comes from. So it's really hard to differentiate and distinguish between muscle mass or lean mass and fat mass. And so someone who has a very high amount of muscle mass can actually be categorized as quote unquote unhealthy. BMI is also really inaccurate in people with varying heights, as if we look at the equation, it divides weight by more in shorter people than in taller people, giving the impression that taller people are actually living in bigger bodies than they are. The second reason why BMI should no longer be used is that it is an inaccurate predictor of health. So one study that actually looks at this was published in 2016, and it observed 40,000 different people with ranging BMIs and tried to determine their cardiometabolic health outcomes. Their results found that 30% of participants in the healthy BMI range were actually metabolically unhealthy based on their blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and inflammatory markers. Additionally, almost 50% of overweight participants and almost 30% of obese participants were metabolically healthy based on the same measures. Is your mind blown just as much as mine was? Now, on top of that, hang in tight. There's more. I know. There was a systematic review published in 2013. This one right here. And it actually was a systematic review, meaning that it actually looked at many different studies, 97 in total. So that's a lot of research that they were looking at and investigating. And they really wanted to see the relationship between all-cause mortality and the body mass index cutoffs. And what did they find? Are you ready? drumroll please, people who were actually in the overweight category lived the longest. And that's not only it, but people who were actually put into grade 1 obesity category lived as long or had the same mortality rates as those in the healthy category. In other words, BMI is not a great predictor of health. So that brings us to the third reason why we need to throw it out the window. Weight cycling within a healthy BMI has worse health outcomes than maintaining your weight at an overweight or obese BMI. So what the research shows is that weight cycling, also known as yo-yo dieting, where you lose weight, gain weight, and have that repeated cycle, actually lends to worse health outcomes. What it actually shows us is that it increases our risk for long-term kidney disease, for stroke, and cardiovascular disease. Now, in a study that looked at 6.7 million individuals, what they found was individuals who had more weight fluctuations, so they yo-yo dieted more often, they actually had 53% higher risk of death from all causes compared to individuals who had a more stable weight throughout their lifespan. And this was actually independent of the BMI categories in which they were found. This is thought to be due to the pressure and the stress that's placed on different organ systems when we go through weight fluctuations. In particular, the heart, the kidneys, blood vessels, and the nervous system. There's even research coming out that's showing that weight cycling might account for all the negative health outcomes associated with a higher BMI. So you're probably wondering, Ari, then what do we do instead? How do I actually be healthy? Good question. Focus on health promoting behaviors. So in comes what we call Health at Every Size, which is a trademark name for a health promotion program that really emphasizes engaging in health promoting behaviors instead of looking and analyzing a number on a scale to tell you whether you're healthy or not. Because at the end of the day, your body knows. Your body knows when it feels good. It knows that when it moves and sweats, it's like, yeah, woo. It knows that when it eats certain foods, it makes it vital. And when it eats other foods, it maybe feels more sluggish. Your body already has that wisdom. And Health at Every Size, this model of healthcare, really allows us to come back to the body and to actually move and engage in behaviors that feel good, that are aligned with our true authenticity, rather than rules that are coming from every direction telling us what we need to eat, how we need to move, how much, and talking about calories. So, if you want to let go of the BMI dream, this idea of fitting into a specific size or being a specific weight, and you really want to start breaking up with diets and making peace with your body, with food, so that you can eat with ease and you can actually find your happy weight, I've created my free guide just for you, so you can stop trying to shrink your body to find happiness. So in this guide, this is the first step to making peace with food, and you will explore the deeper reason why you are struggling with food, understand the biology of diets and why they aren't working for you. You'll get journal prompts to mend a diet heartbreak and affirmations to heal and move on. Now, as always, thank you so much for connecting with me and tuning in. I can't wait to share my next video with you. So until then, may you live in alignment with your well.